Natalie, tornadoes are a potential threat as Debbie gets closer.
Yeah, we're going to watch that, Dave and Courtney. We're also going to be watching for the potential of high winds. Not only could that prompt some areas of severe weather concerns, but also some dangerous gusts that could easily cause some damage out there. First things first, I want to talk about the latest on Tropical Storm Debby. I showed you that track a few moments ago. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Now I want to show you how the outer flow of this storm has already been bringing swaths of rain into our neck of the woods. We did have them since really lunchtime and earlier this afternoon swinging from the south to the north, but this is the first time we're now starting to get some of these isolated storms cause a severe thunderstorm warning. Now this is just south of Highlands County, so not technically in our viewing area just yet, just to the west of Lake Okeechobee there, but this gives you an indication of what these squall lines are capable of. Really seeing the potential of winds exceeding 58 miles per hour. That is the severe threshold, and I do think that's what this thunderstorm right here is capable of producing. Also watch out for hail, but I really think it's going to be winds that are a primary concern. Ahead of it, the rain that is actually sweeping through Polk County back through eastern Hillsborough, this is actually much lighter, but it is still fast moving. So while it's not dropping a whole lot of rain right now, it is really brushing through the region rather quickly and having quite a bit of wind, breeze at least, associated with it. And we're kind of seeing that back along the coast. So let's go back to the track, because I do want to paint this picture for you and just show you how as it treks its way through the eastern Gulf of Mexico tonight, much of tomorrow, even by Monday morning in the northeastern Gulf, you'll see how it gradually has the potential to strengthen, and it is forecast to do so to the point where the National Hurricane Center thinks, yeah, shortly before landfall, maybe even a few hours before, we could be looking at a Category 1 hurricane with maximum sustained wind speeds forecast to be at about 75 miles per hour. I am anxious to see with the 11 o'clock update if this changes at all. I don't think the track is going to change a great deal, but the potential forecast strength, that does have some wiggle room to change because we do have a very warm eastern Gulf of Mexico out there. But models remain in pretty decent agreement with that track that it'll continue to not only drift to the northwest tonight, but eventually kind of take a straight northerly turn by tomorrow before drifting to the northeast going into Monday morning. So this has prompted easily tropical storm warnings. Those watches that we had earlier this morning have all transitioned to a tropical storm warning for all of us. This is due to the fact that tropical storm force conditions, they're ongoing. Not only are we getting those squall lines to move through, but embedded within that rain has been some of those gusty winds. It is a tropical storm watch for Polk County, Hardy, DeSoto, and that's because the potential is there to see those rounds coming through, but it just may not be as persistent. And honestly, the impact won't be as high as it will be along the coast. This red here near Cross City, that is where we anticipate potential landfall. So that is why the National Hurricane Center does have a hurricane warning up there. And you'll see how this trend just continues to take it again to the north and to the northeast. Landfall at this point, especially with our in-house model, this is not only forecasting a hurricane, but it is forecasting a hurricane making landfall around Horseshoe Beach, north of Cedar Key, near Cross City, just south of it potentially. And yeah, some of these winds that are wrapping around that will only not only be able to clip parts of Citrus County, but also parts of southeastern Tallahassee as well. So that is why those threats, they expand far and wide, well outside of that cone. So that is something to really take into consideration, especially when you're talking about these bands of rain coming through. They'll have lots of heavy downpours and winds at times easily exceeding 40 to 60 miles per hour. So storm surge, that will be a concern as we watch all that water push on shore. And to talk more about your county by county impacts, we'll send it over to meteorologist Colleen Campbell.
Thank you, Natalie. Yes, so when we talk about storm surge, it's very important that we know the tide times as well. So recapping everything here, here's Tropical Storm Debby. We are expecting it to strengthen to a Category 1 storm. But let's go over the tide times because the highest tide is very important when we're talking storm surge. And it's going to be a higher tide than normal anyway because we have a new moon that's taking place tomorrow morning at 7:13. So that's going to increase that tide even more. But for Tampa, 5 o'clock in the morning, and then again at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is when we have the highest tides. St. Petersburg just before 5 a.m. and then 2 p.m. again for that second round of high tide. 1:30 in the morning tomorrow morning for Clearwater, and then going into tomorrow afternoon just around noon will be that second high tide for Clearwater, and then finally, Crystal River, 5:31 for that first high tide. Second high tide is going to be just before 5 p.m. So these areas, really pay attention to that, because if you're in a flood-prone area, you need to watch where the storm is and pay attention to the tide, because that will increase your likelihood of seeing some flooding, especially if you're a flood-prone area. So again, Debbie, local impacts here: Citrus, Hernando, Pasco County. The timing from tomorrow around noon, lunchtime, up until we're doing 24-hour timing here Monday at noon. Now, this time window could change. Keep that in mind. Winds will have anywhere from 40 to 60 mile-per-hour winds. Rain 6 to 12 inches, and then we also have that threat for storm surge. This is the area where the storm surge threat is the highest. And again, keep in mind those tide times. Pasco County, a little bit further to the south there, so they have that 2 to 4 foot storm surge threat. Need to know, make sure you have your phone on to those alerts, whether it be the 10 Tampa Bay app or whatever source you may be using. A weather radio works great too. We do have a tropical storm warning for that area highlighted in blue. Now we're moving down to Pinellas and Hillsborough County. Much of the same impacts, maybe a little bit less here. Winds are 40 to 55 miles per hour. Rain 5 to 10 inches we're looking at, and the surge is 2 to 4 feet. The timing is a little bit earlier than what we just saw around the Nature Coast, Citrus County, because the storm, just on the direction, it's going to be to the west of Pinellas, Hillsborough County. We're really looking at tomorrow afternoon, but we pushed it to tomorrow morning. We'll start having the impacts because of those outer bands, as we just explained. And there's also a tropical storm warning for Hillsborough and Pinellas County as well. Manatee and Sarasota County, of course, this is the furthest southern point. 7 a.m. tomorrow to Monday, 7 a.m. Impact winds 40 to 50 miles per hour, rain 4 to 8 inches, and surge 2 to 4 feet. Now, a lot of you may wonder, well, why are certain areas going to see less storm surge? Well, one of that has to do with the tides that we just went over, but also keep in mind the way that the peninsula is shaped. It kind of has that little bend, right? And the storm is traveling out to the west. So it will be a couple hundred miles out to the west to start, and then it kind of gets a little bit closer to the coast as it moves towards landfall. And as Natalie Ferrari just explained, we're looking at landfall, estimating it to be around the Big Bend region tomorrow. So again, going into the local impacts here, now we're looking at Polk, Hardy, DeSoto, and Highlands County, 10 a.m. tomorrow to Monday, 10 a.m. Of course, this is entering towards a peak of hurricane season. Don't forget that. We always want you to be prepared. And although this is a tropical storm, we could see this strengthen to a Cat 1 hurricane. Now stay tuned, because we're going to have the latest updates. We have an extra show tonight just so we can keep you posted. We have our next advisory that's coming out at 11, and we want to show you the 7-day forecast as well.